These are the headlines we're following at this hour. The death toll rises in Gaza as an Israeli airstrike hits a densely populated refugee camp, killing dozens of people. Israeli forces say they were targeting a Hamas commander. Meanwhile, hostage talks are ongoing through intermediaries, and Hamas says it will release some foreign hostages in the coming days. South Korea's exports in October rebounded to an increase after 12 months of decline. They were the highest monthly export figures this year, driven by strong performance of the auto sector and the recovery in the chip industry. South Korea and the United States are among 40 countries to sign a pledge never to pay ransoms to cybercriminals. This as the UN accuses North Korea of illegally funding its weapons programs through cybercrimes. Good afternoon. We start with the war in Gaza. An Israeli airstrike hits a densely populated refugee camp, killing dozens of people. Israeli forces say they were targeting a Hamas commander. Meanwhile, hostage talks are ongoing through intermediaries, and Hamas says it will release some foreign hostages in the coming days. Min-jae has the latest.
An Israeli strike on a refugee camp in Jabalia in Gaza on Tuesday has killed dozens and injured hundreds more. The Israeli military says the airstrike was part of a successful operation to kill Hamas's top commander Ibrahim Biari. However, the militant group denied that one of its leaders was at the camp and has instead accused Israel of a heinous crime against safe civilians, children, and women. Initial reports from Gaza's health ministry says at least 50 people were killed in the strike. Meanwhile, according to the General Authority for Crossings and Borders in Gaza, Egypt is set to receive 81 Gazans who have been severely wounded via the Rafah border crossing. According to the AFP, citing an Egyptian medical official, medical teams in Egypt will be at the Rafah crossing to examine the cases coming from Gaza and determine the hospitals they will be sent to. Gaza's health ministry says more than 8,500 Palestinians have been killed since the armed conflict began on October 7th. Hamas says it will release some foreign hostages in the coming days, but did not elaborate further. A spokesman for Hamas's armed wing, Qassam Brigades, said Tuesday that they have informed intermediaries that they will be releasing the foreign hostages soon. More than 230 people, including Israeli soldiers, civilians, and foreigners from several countries, are being held by the militant group. And amid the fierce attacks by Israel, the spokesperson also warned that Hamas would turn Gaza into a graveyard and a quagmire for Israeli forces. Min-jae, Arirang News.
Now turning to the war in Ukraine. According to the UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, over 9,900 civilians have lost their lives in Ukraine since Russia invaded in February last year. Speaking to ambassadors at a Security Council meeting on Tuesday, Director Ramesh Varzanksian emphasized the impact of destruction of civilian infrastructure by the Russian Federation on vulnerable groups. He noted concerns about access to electricity, heating, water, and telecommunications for civilians, adding that winter has heightened those concerns. He also says civilians must be protected under international humanitarian law and that what Ukrainians need the most is for the war to end. U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping will meet this month and are expected to have constructive conversations. That is according to the White House on Tuesday, which announced that the meeting will take place on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC, summit in San Francisco this November. White House Press Secretary added that Biden is expected to have tough conversations, though no details were mentioned about the possible agenda. The meeting comes after China's top diplomat Wang Yi's recent visit to Washington in a series of exchanges between high-ranking officials as the two sides aim to keep open communication channels. Washington has imposed financial sanctions on Myanmar's state-owned oil company in an effort to increase pressure on Myanmar's ruling junta. On Tuesday, the U.S. Treasury Department announced that it will prohibit financial services such as loans and investment by Americans to the Myanmar oil and gas enterprise, but would not block the MOGE from America's banking system completely. It has also added sanctions on 3 entities and 5 people said to be linked to Myanmar's military. This follows the EU's restrictive measures against the MOGE in February this year. The company is the junta's biggest source of foreign currency reserve. South Korea and the United States are among 40 countries to sign a pledge never to pay ransoms to cybercriminals. This as the UN accuses North Korea of illegally funding its weapons programs through cybercrimes. Kim Jung-sil reports.
40 countries, including South Korea and the U.S., plan to sign a pledge never to pay ransoms to cybercriminals. They're part of a U.S.-led alliance that will also work toward eliminating the hackers' funding mechanisms. The White House announced a plan on Tuesday local time. The International Counter-Ransomware Initiative, a 2-day event ending on November 1st, includes representatives from 48 countries, the EU, and Interpol. This is the 3rd annual event that is being hosted by the U.S., which, according to the White House, is the country that has been hit hardest by cybercrime. It aims to eradicate the criminals' funding by sharing information, including the ransom payment accounts. The initiative comes as FBI Director Christopher Wray emphasized the risks of cyber attacks at Tuesday's U.S. Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs. Wray said in the last few years, countries like China, North Korea, and Russia, quote, use cyber operations to target U.S. research. He also said cyber attacks by China, Russia, and Iran are becoming more aggressive and more capable than ever before. The FBI director said he's most worried that these adversaries focus on, quote, compromising U.S. critical infrastructure, especially during a crisis. In ransomware attacks, hackers hack into an organization's systems to steal information or encrypt data and demand ransom in exchange for unlocking it. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
North Korea has closed its embassy in Spain following the recent shutdown of its diplomatic missions in Africa. A diplomatic document released by the Communist Party of the Peoples of Spain on Wednesday showed Pyongyang's announcement that it will be closing its embassy in Spain and that its embassy in Italy will be in charge of matters involving Spain from now on. It did not elaborate on the reason for the closure. The North's latest move comes just days after it closed a number of its embassies in Africa, including those in Uganda and Angola, which the South Korean government has said is a sign that the regime is struggling to make money overseas because of global sanctions. South Korea's exports in October rebounded to an increase after 12 months of decline. They were the highest monthly export figures this year, driven by strong performance of the auto sector and a recovery in the chip industry. Our Park Gun-woo has the details.
South Korea's exports for the month of October jumped 5.1% on year, reaching a new high for 2023. According to the Trade Ministry on Wednesday, this was the first time in 13 months that South Korea saw an increase in exports compared to the year before. The country's trade balance in October was in the black for the 5th consecutive month, with the export volume exceeding $55 billion and imports hovering under the $54 billion line for a surplus of some $1.6 billion. Robust exports were mainly attributed to the performance of core export items, including automobiles, general machinery, ships, and displays, which have all seen a jump for several consecutive months. The higher cost of petroleum products also pushed outbound shipments up for the first time in 8 months. Semiconductors, one of South Korea's largest export goods, saw a recovery last month as well, after a poor performance in Q1. By region, 6 out of 9 of Korea's major outbound shipping markets saw an increase in October. In particular, exports to the U.S. were highest for any October, mainly backed by electric vehicle exports. Total exports to the U.S. came to $10.1 billion, exceeding the $10 billion mark for the 2nd consecutive month. Exports to China remained above $10 billion for the third straight month, while shipments to the ASEAN region were not just a new high in 2023, but also for any October on record. As for imports last month, due to higher prices for energy sources such as gas and coal, the figure shrank by over 9% year-on-year. Meanwhile, South Korea's trade minister stressed that recent export data is evidence of recovery, even in times of global uncertainty, including high interest rates and oil prices. He added that the government would do its very best to maintain this trend until the end of the year. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
The World Health Organization has recognized South Korea's regulatory excellence by making it one of the first 3 countries named as WHO-listed authorities. South Korea's Ministry of Food and Drug Safety, along with the Swiss Agency for Therapeutic Products and Singapore's Health Sciences Authority, were named as WLAs. They were given the label as they comply with all the indicators and requirements specified by the WHO. The Global Health Organization said the designation marks a milestone achievement for South Korea, Switzerland, and Singapore in earning global recognition and promoting their confidence. It added that the WLA framework aims to recognize advanced regulatory authorities and promote access and supply of safe, effective, and quality medical products. South Korean defender Min-jae was named AFC Asian International Player of the Year 2022 on Tuesday. At the ceremony in Doha, the Asian Football Confederation noted his contribution to the Italian side Napoli last season, with 16 clean sheets, 2 goals, and 2 assists in 33 matches as the Blues won their first league title in 33 years. He was also part of the Napoli team that secured its best ever Champions League finish, reaching the quarterfinals. Currently at the German side Bayern Munich, Kim becomes just the 2nd South Korean player after Son Heung-min to win the award. Arirang TV's Simply K-pop program recently had the pleasure of hosting Norwegian pop star Peder Elias, much to the delight of his fans here at home and abroad. Our Ian has a story.
Simply K-pop, also known as Simply Contour, is a live concert program broadcast by Arirang TV and hosted by Lee Dae-hee. It features live performances by a variety of K-pop artists and plays an essential role as a platform to interact with fans and share music with an audience both in South Korea and internationally. In this week's episode, Norwegian pop star Peder Elias took to the stage as a special guest, where he shared his eagerness to connect with his dedicated fan base.
안녕하세요. My name is Peder Elias. I am an artist, singer-songwriter from Norway, and I love being in Korea and playing shows and meeting all the beautiful people here, and excited to do this interview right now.
Peder has already secured fans across Southeast Asia and here in Korea, where his single Loving You Girl achieved chart success in 2021. This year, he returned to South Korea for a live concert and made a special visit to Arirang TV.
Then I also heard later that this was the show where international artists go as well, so then I thought that would be really cool.
Simply K-pop Contour is also seeking to make its shows more inclusive by producing special country-themed episodes where they invite fans from those countries to join the broadcast remotely. The show became a platform for Peder to share his music with an even broader audience.
I think it was almost like love at first sight. For me, it was kind of Koreans were the first people that really started listening to my music. So therefore it was like natural kind of special bond, because they changed a lot for me and gave me a lot of opportunities through discovering first my song Bonfire and later lots of more songs.
Over the years, Simply K-pop has hosted a range of K-pop artists, including global superstars like BTS, reaffirming its status as a stage where well-known K-pop artists and emerging talents come together to share their passion for music. Hosted and subtitled in multiple languages, the show airs worldwide every Friday and is streamed on YouTube every other Monday. Iun-hee, Arirang News.
Since taking office last year, President Yoon Suk-yeol has declared he will make Korea a global pivotal state and has engaged in summits with scores of countries to make that happen. In the process, South Korea is becoming a key force for cooperation across the world, according to a renowned scholar of international relations. Our Oh Soo-young sat down with him.
South Korea has grown as an important Indo-Pacific partner for European countries and a force for multilateral cooperation amid war and tensions across the world. That's according to Ramon Pacheco Pardo, a professor of King's College London who recently co-authored Korea, A New History of South and North. Speaking to Arirang News, Pacheco Pardo said the perception of South Korea has changed over the past year and a half, particularly among European governments, which are increasing their engagement in the Indo-Pacific to secure peace and development, where 60% of the world's maritime trade passes through. He said Seoul's surge of soft and material power in recent years has shown its growing capacity to contribute to resolving global challenges, looking beyond its own security interests on the Korean peninsula.
It's not only the demand for Korea to do more, but they believe that Korea has the economic resources, technological resources, diplomatic resources, and military resources, along with the soft power, to contribute more, to contribute to the provision of global goods, aid, for example, to developing countries. You also see, for example, when it comes to supply chains, diversification or de-risking, as some people call it, away from China. Well,
the expert noted that Seoul was invited to the G7 and NATO summits for 2 straight years since 2023, with President Yoon Suk-yeol pushing to bolster global solidarity and institutions to deter threats from North Korea, ensure peace and the rule of law in regional waters, stabilize supply chains, and support the green transition and global development. In particular, Seoul's trilateral cooperation with Washington and Tokyo, set out at the Camp David summit in August, is expected to become the driving force for building peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific.
I think it is necessary for Korea, Japan, and the US to make sure that they start implementing at least some of the deliverables from the Camp David statement as soon as possible, whether it's a dialogue, education program, whether it is the joint development of deterrence capabilities that they were talking about, for example, in the area of economic security.
But beyond trilateral efforts, multilateralism is crucial to keeping the momentum going, beyond political forces of change that may come as a result of key elections next year, particularly the US presidential race. Here, Pacheco Pardo said Seoul can play a crucial role in solidifying the network of like-minded partners, especially in maritime cooperation and high-tech areas like semiconductors, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity and space.
In terms of making this a success, I think it is necessary also to engage other partners. Of course, Korea, Japan and the US can do a lot together, but many of the areas they focus on, for example, economic security, for example, they do focus on the development of new technologies. You really need other partners. You need Europe, you need Canada, you need Australia, you need Taiwan as well.
Having held 142 summits with 93 countries so far, Yoon is set to engage with a number of European countries until the year end, in bilateral summits with the leaders of Ireland, the UK and the Netherlands. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In the Middle East, Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen issued a video statement on Tuesday claiming ballistic missiles and armed drone attacks against Israel. Houthi military spokesperson Brigadier Yahya Saree said it was the third such operation since the October 7th Hamas attack and that they plan to carry out more strikes until the Israeli aggression stops. Israeli military officials on the same day said the newly operational Arrow missile defense system had shot down a surface-to-surface missile they believed to have been launched by Houthis aimed at the port city of Eilat. They also said fighter jets had successfully intercepted drones, with the Times of Israel reporting that no intrusion into Israeli territory was detected. 25 days into the Israel-Hamas war, concerns are high over the regional conflict amid speculation that Iran could become more actively involved. In Europe, heiress to the Spanish throne, one of the last remaining monarchies in Europe, has turned 18. On her 18th birthday on Tuesday, Spanish Crown Princess Leonor de Borbon-Ortiz swore allegiance to her country's constitution, laying the foundation for her eventual succession as the Queen of Spain. During the televised ceremony in the lower house of Parliament, Leonor recited the same oath that her father, King Felipe VI, did when he turned 18 in 1986, pledging to faithfully carry out her duties and to keep and uphold the Constitution and the laws and respect the rights of citizens. Should Princess Leonor become the next queen, she'll be Spain's first queen since Queen Isabella II, who reigned from 1833 to 1868. In the US, a 58-year-old Maryland man who became the second person in the world to receive a transplanted heart from a pig has died. Lawrence Fassett, who was dying from heart failure and ineligible for a conventional heart transplant, received the genetically modified pig heart transplant surgery on September 20th. He survived for nearly 6 weeks after the highly experimental surgery, just short of the 2 months that the world's first pig heart transplant patient, David Bennett, lived following the surgery the year before. Fassett's cause of death was due to the body's rejection of the organ, while the previous patient, Bennett, passed away from a pig virus found inside the organ. Saudi Arabia is set to host the Men's 2034 World Cup after being named as the only bidder for the competition. According to FIFA President Gianni Infantino on Tuesday, Saudi Arabia was the only interested party after Australia pulled out ahead of the FIFA deadline on the same day. Football Australia said it would now focus on preparing to hold the Women's Asian Cup in 2026 and the Club World Cup in 2029. The US, Mexico and Canada will host the World Cup in 2026, while Morocco, Portugal and Spain remain the single bid for the 2030 edition. A FIFA Congress in late 2024 will confirm hosting duties for the 2030 and 2034 World Cups. Kim Ji-young, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. We are entering into November, but the temperature feels like it's going backwards. Morning temperatures were nearly 11 degrees Celsius higher than season norms, and highs will also soar to 23 degrees Celsius this afternoon here in Seoul. And it's going to be even warmer tomorrow with an expected high of 25 degrees. Perhaps shirts and shorts will be just fine. Northern parts of the country, however, will see some spotty showers through tonight with 5 to 30 millimeters of rain expected, along with thunder and lightning during the day. Air quality could become bad in some of the western regions, including here in Seoul. Meanwhile, southern parts of the country are in for very warm and promising weather under plenty of sunshine today. Daegu sees highs of 25 degrees. Gyeongju, Jeju will be warmer today. Mother Nature will give us extra warmth for the next couple of days. Then rain this weekend will bring a late autumn chill to the country next week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
The bedbug panic is spreading beyond Paris and into South Korea. The fears first began at a university dormitory in the southern city of Daegu, then in Seona, in Incheon, and now in many parts in Seoul. Some people are refusing to sit down on subway train seats or canceling movies out of the fear. Bedbugs are tiny insects that feed on blood. They don't transmit diseases but cause rashes and itchy skin. They can cause a lot more nuisance than mosquitoes, as 30 to 50 of them could bite you at once. Authorities blame the post-COVID-19 travel surge and have started preventative measures at the airport. The key to prevention is keeping good personal hygiene, closely examining furniture, and washing fabrics on the hottest temperature. If you find bed bugs, use the high heat of steam, as well as vacuums and insecticides. That is all for today. Thanks for watching.